Hi, this is Missy Russell, the Regional Housing and Veteran Services Coordinator with Lawrence County Community Action Partnership. Today, I'm here with Cynthia Gilkey, who is the housing attorney for Neighborhood Legal Services. And this is the first part of a series that we're doing on fair housing. Welcome, Cynthia. How are you?
Good. How are you, Missy?
I'm really well. Thank you for joining us today. Super excited to bring this information to the public and to our clients and other services that we offer and other agencies that we work with. And I have a few questions for you today. My first question on fair housing is, can you tell me a little bit about what the protected classes are?
Absolutely. The Fair Housing Act is an act under the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development that covers about 2.5 million people every year. The Fair Housing Act covers discrimination based upon race, color, disability, or importantly, perceived disability, sex, including sex orientation and gender identity, religion, national origin, and familial status, which familial status includes members of your household. Most often it comes up with having minor children.
What are some common accommodations that folks often ask for or need with the Fair Housing Act?
The Fair Housing Act covers accommodations and modifications to rental housing. I'll start by explaining under the law, disability is defined as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more of a person's major life activities. One of the most common accommodations that I get asked questions about are emotional support animals. Specifically, a landlord must allow you to have an emotional support or a service animal, and it is not considered a pet. Your landlord cannot charge a pet deposit or any pet fees because specifically they're defined as not pets.
Okay, so talk a little bit more about that. How does one typically get an animal as a, what did you call it, comfort, a support animal?
Emotional support animal.
Emotional support.
The person would go to their medical provider. The most common is in the case of emotional support animals, it would be some form of mental health service provider. It doesn't have to be a doctor. It could be their counselor, whatever agency they're seeking services from, and they can provide documentation that it is necessary due to their disability. Tenant would then, and I always recommend that it be in writing, although it could be verbal, request the accommodation of their landlord and provide the documentation from their medical provider. They do not need to go into the specifics of what their diagnosis is, simply that they need to provide the documentation that it's medically recommended.
That makes sense. Okay. Are there any other common requests for accommodations that you typically get?
I would say the next most common request would be for modifications to the property. The landlord is not obligated to agree to any modification that a tenant requests. They're required to engage in a back and forth discussion regarding what accommodations would work for the tenant, and they cannot deny an accommodation that is reasonable. In the case of a private landlord, the modification or accommodation in the property would still need to be at the tenant's expense. However, it cannot be denied by the landlord. Something like installing grab bars in a shower, for example. That's generally reasonable. It doesn't change the actual structure of the apartment, and it would most likely be in violation of the Fair Housing Act if the landlord were to deny that request. If, for example, the tenant wanted to completely tear out the bathroom and install a different, say, a walk-in tub or shower, that gets a little more complicated because it is significantly changing the structure of the property, although it doesn't eliminate the landlord's obligation to engage in a discussion with the tenant about what accommodations would be reasonable for whatever the nature of the disability is.
That makes sense too. Are there any other accommodations that are typically asked for?
The ones I covered are the most common. If someone is dealing with an issue with a disability, however, they're having problems with their landlord, they should definitely reach out and seek help from some of the agencies that we'll discuss later, because there are all different areas that accommodations can cover. It could be things like wheelchair ramps. It could even be something, if the person's disabled and receives Social Security disability as their source of income, it's possible to use a reasonable accommodation request to change the due date of the rent and avoid late fees.
Based on when they get paid.
Exactly. For example, the rent's due on the 1st and the disability payments aren't deposited until the 3rd, and the landlord's charging $50 due to that couple days, the tenant has the ability to request a reasonable accommodation in a change of the date of the rent. And in that situation, it would be very hard for the landlord to deny, because realistically, it's only a matter of a couple days. It's no expense to the landlord.
And that's what the reasonable part comes in.
Exactly. Now, if they said, they wanted to pay half of the rent because their disability won't cover it, obviously that's not reasonable.
Yeah. See, that makes sense. I think there's that fine line. Sometimes people don't understand, or, So what can someone do if they believe they have experienced housing discrimination? Like, what should they do? What's the first step?
The first step is, in my opinion, would be to reach out to obtain some sort of legal advice. We'll discuss how to contact neighborhood legal services. But as a first step, they could talk over what the issue is with us. We may be able to engage in a dialogue with the landlord and resolve the issue. If we're not able to do that, we can help them make sure that they've properly documented their request to the landlord and the landlord's denial. We can also assist with filing complaints through HUD about the discrimination. Also, individuals can go directly to HUD and file their own fair housing discrimination cases.
Okay. So what is the advantage to going through an agency like Neighborhood Legal Services versus maybe just going directly to HUD?
We deal with these issues frequently, and we have the experience to handle it, and it's also sometimes more efficient. It could be as simple as a phone call from an attorney is willing to get the landlord's attention. We can explain to the tenants what exactly their rights are, make sure that they're properly requesting the accommodation, and that everything's documented properly.
It's that the extra support that you guys are giving rather than just someone going on their own. Now they have a support from an attorney that can guide them through a process rather than them just doing it by themselves. That's what it sounds like, yeah.
Exactly. And if it would come to the point where they would actually need to pursue a violation of the Fair Housing Act through the courts and through HUD, we can make sure that that's set up for them to best present their case. We can make sure that it's been properly requested, that all the stages are properly documented, and including just that the request was in fact reasonable.
Yeah, that's probably a good place to start, right? Is my request or what I need actually reasonable? That's
Right.
probably a good place to start rather than, that makes sense.
We can also help individuals assess whether the landlord's responses are reasonable as well.
Yeah, that's great. What are some additional or other services Neighborhood Legal Services offers to the public, and how do they contact you?
We have Neighborhood Legal Services provides civil legal assistance to low-income individuals. We do have a process to assure that you qualify income-wise. We can assist with housing issues, including issues with landlords, in addition to the Fair Housing Act, evictions, habitability issues, other housing situations, including foreclosures or tax sales. Outside of the area of housing, we do a lot of family law, including protection from abuse orders and other legal services for victims of domestic violence, custody cases under certain circumstances. We provide assistance with bankruptcy and other consumer issues. And importantly, we provide assistance with obtaining public benefits or appealing denials of public benefits. That's
amazing. That's a wide array of services. And I'm just going to throw a little tag in there too. Neighborhood Legal Services partners with LCCAP for our supportive services for veteran families, legal aid. So we are partnered, and our veterans that qualify for the SSVF program, we send on over to Neighborhood Legal Services to go ahead and have that support if they need it in certain areas, one of them being housing and benefits and things like that. And we've had such a good response and success rate with that. It's completely amazing. And staff, including yourself, Cindy, they do monthly webinars with us from anything from, how to obtain the benefits and family law, like all kind of stuff. So it's such a great piece of education that we offer for our veterans and our staff and other agencies that in the future here, we're going to be pushing that out, that clients can sit on those webinars too. So just putting a plug in for that. I know Neighborhood Legal Services, since I've worked so closely with them, they're a really great group of folks that do amazing services. So I'll just say thank you for being a part of that, because it's such a needed support, the legal part, pieces of this. So that's so amazing.
We do provide assistance specifically to veterans for issues that are unique to veterans benefits as well, in addition to just the regular public benefits that everybody's familiar with whether Medicaid or SNAP or LIHEAP. The benefits that are specific to veterans, we can provide assistance with also.
That's amazing. So is there anything else that you want to add before we sign off until we get together for our next piece of this series? Anything else you think that is?
I would add that if individuals are looking for additional information about fair housing or just any legal issues in general, they can go to our website that's www.nlsa.us. There's also great fair housing resources from the Fair Housing Law Center. It can also be accessed if you just Google Fair Housing Law Center. If anyone is interested in our services, they can apply online through our website. They can call the 1-800 number listed on our website. Or if they are in Newcastle, they can specifically come to our office at 105 South Mercer Street in Newcastle.
Great. Wow, that's such great information. Thank you so much, Cindy, for joining us today. And you will be back, whether you know it or not. You will be back for the second piece of the series on fair housing. So again, thank you for coming in, and thank you for sharing all this information. It's extremely valuable and helpful.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to speaking to everybody again.
Great. Thanks.